Jai Narayan students, in the previous lecture of chapter The Lost Spring, we studied that the author speaks about Simapuri, which, though literally was at the periphery of Delhi, is figuratively miles away from it. The place is occupied by squatters from Bangladesh who came here in 1971. They live in mud structures with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. The place has no drainage system or running water. More than 10,000 ragpickers have been living here for the past 30 years. They have no identity, yet they have valid ration cards and their names are on the voters list. Not having any identity does not bother them as long as they have food and don't have to sleep on empty stomachs. They have forgotten the green fields of their country as they were unable to subsist on them. They pitch their tents wherever they find food. Now, today, open page number 16. We have to start from page number 16. In the first paragraph, we'll study about Sahib's evening. Here, Sahib yearns to play tennis. He wants to wear shoes. But the game is out of his reach. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lightening up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. To survive in Simapuri, they have to pick garbage which is like gold to them, as it is their means of livelihood. Sahib says sometimes he finds a 10 rupee note or a coin in it. The author realizes that garbage holds a different meaning to both parents and children. For parents, it is the source of their livelihood, providing them with food and shelter. For children, it is wrapped in wonder. Here, once again, they get a chance rupee or a coin in garbage, which sustains their hope, and they keep scrounging in the hope of finding more. Now, next paragraph. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums. Hums means he spoke very softly. Content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded, that they are no longer useful. Shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently, so attentively, is out of his reach. Now, in this paragraph, we came to know that the author next sees an instance of a child's desire for a normal childhood. One morning, he sees Sahib outside the neighborhood club watching tennis. He was wearing tennis shoes which were probably discarded by a rich boy. These shoes mismatched with his faded clothes. Though one of the shoe had a hole in it, it did not bother Sahib. For Sahib, who was walked his whole life barefoot, it is like a dream come true. Now, in the next paragraph, we are going to study how Sahib worked as an employee. He gets a job in a tea stall and earns rupees 800 per month. Meets the author while fetching milk in a steel canister for his employer. His face loses the carefree look. Steel canister appears heavier than the plastic bag, appears burdened and unhappy. He is no longer a master of his own self, an employee with no freedom. So now, page number 16, last paragraph. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Here, Sahib is telling that now he is working and he is being paid rupees 800 and all his meals. Does he like the job? Once again, the narrator asked. Does he likes his job? His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The carefree look which Sahib had on his face while he was rag picking was no more to be seen. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry on lightly over his shoulder. The steel canister was much more heavier than the plastic bag which he used to carry on his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. Why the canister seemed to be so heavy? Because the canister was not his own. In fact, it was of the tea shop's owner. So, Sahib was no longer his own master. Here, we studied that Sahib loses his freedom. One morning, the author met Sahib when he was walking to the milk booth. He was carrying a steel canister. He told the author that he was now working at a tea stall and was paid 800 rupees and all his meal. He did not look happy. In fact, his face had lost its earlier carefree look. The steel canister seemed heavier than the plastic bag he carried earlier. Sahib felt its burden, for he had lost his freedom. The canister belonged to the owner of the tea stall, where he worked now, whereas the plastic bag was his own. In earlier days, at least, he was his own master. Now, all of you come to page number 17. We are going to start the second story of the same chapter. Here we see Mukesh's desire. In the first part, we'll see about Mukesh's desire. A child laborer in a glass factory in Firozabad. He wishes to become a motor mechanic. Desires to learn to drive a car. Mukesh and his family engaged in making bangles. His family unaware that child labor is illegal. Now, I'm going to read on page number 17. I want to drive a car. Mukesh insists on being his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces. He insists that he wanted to be a motor mechanic. Now the narrator is asking, do you know anything about cars? I ask. Mukesh is answering, I will learn to drive a car, he answers. Looking straight into my eyes, here my is the author narrator. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets. Here, loom means appear. Mirage means a illusion and amidst means between. So here, his dreams appear like an illusion between the dust of streets that fill his town Firozabad, famous for its bangles. Firozabad is famous for bangle making. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles. It is the center of India's glass blowing industry, where families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for all the women in the land, it seems. Now, in the first paragraph, we studied that Mukesh wants to be his own master. Here begins the second story. In Firozabad, the author comes across Mukesh, a child laborer in a glass factory who wishes to be a motor mechanic. The author wants to know if he has any knowledge about cars. He says he will learn to drive a car. Mukesh belongs to a family which is engaged in bangle making, like many other families there. Firozabad is the hub of India's glass blowing industry, where generation after generation has been involved in this business. We also studied here the hazardous conditions in glass furnace. The temperature of the glass furnace is quite high. The dinghy cells without air and light. They are very poorly ventilated. Children often lose the brightness of their eyes. In the next paragraph, Mukesh's family is among them. None of them knew that it is illegal for children like him, to work in the glass furnace with high temperature. In dinghy cells means dark and gloomy. Cells without air and light. Mukesh family was also one amongst those who were engaged in bangle making family, and none of them knew that it was illegal for children to work in such kind of gloomy atmosphere. That the law, if enforced means made compulsory. If the law was made compulsory, then could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnace where they slog their daylight hours. Slog means work hard. So, if they would have known about the law, and if the law was made compulsory, then these 20,000 children who were working on the hot furnace, they would have been made free. Often losing the brightness of their eyes. Normally, when they work around the furnace, hot furnace, in the daylight also, then its consequences are that they lose the brightness of their eyes. Mukesh's eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home. Here me is the narrator. So Mukesh was quite happy to take narrator to his home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. We walk down stinking lanes. Stinking means foul smelling lanes, choked with garbage. As they were walking, they walked down the smelling lanes and choked garbage, past homes that remain hovel. Hovel means they were very simply constructed, with crumbling walls. Crumbling means disintegrating. The walls were also disintegrating. Wobbly doors. Wobbly means that were not stable. Unstable doors. No windows. Crowded with families of human and animals coexisting in a primeval state. Primeval state means ancient state. Their houses were having disintegrated walls, not steady doors. They were having no windows, and the houses were filled with families of humans and animals also. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot, and pushes it open. We enter a half built shack. Shack means hut. When the door was open, they entered into a half built hut. In one part of it, thatched with dead grass, is a firewood stove over which sits a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves. On the ground, in large aluminium platter, platter means a large flat dish, are more chopped vegetables. When they entered, they noticed that the firewood was burning. A frail young woman is cooking the evening meal. A very weak but young woman was preparing the evening meal for the whole family. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. That weak and young girl was Mukesh's elder brother's wife. Not much older in years, she has begun to command respect as the Bahu, the daughter-in-law of the house. She was not much older in years, but she had begun to get or command respect as the Bahu. Already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. When the older man enters, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her veil closer to her face. When the older man means when Mukesh's father enters into the house, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall. She moves at the back of the broken wall and covers her face with a veil. As custom demands, daughter-in-law must veil their faces before male elders, and it was the demand of the custom that the younger daughter-in-laws, they should put a veil on their face before male elders. In this case, the elder is an impoverished bangle maker, and in Mukesh's case, this elder who entered is very poor bangle maker. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor, then a bangle maker, he has failed to renovate a house. Now here we come to know that Mukesh's father, he had worked very hard for many long years. First he worked as a tailor and then as a bangle maker. But still he failed to even redecorate a house. Sent his 2 sons to school. He was not able to give proper education to his 2 sons. All he has managed to do is teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. He has only taught his 2 sons the art which he himself was having, and that was the art of making bangles. So, till here we studied that the author encounters poverty. The author comments on the ignorance of the people of Firozabad who involve their children in this industry at a very early age, least realizing that it is illegal for children to work in such hazardous condition. If the law is enforced, almost 20,000 children would be out of those hot furnaces. Mukesh is very happy when the author wishes to go to his house. He proudly tells the author that his house is being rebuilt. They walk through smelly lanes which are choked with garbage. They go past homes and crumpled walls, houses with no windows where families of humans coexist with animals. They finally entered a half-built shack, one part of which is covered with dead grass. Food was being cooked on a firewood stove by a young woman. She was Mukesh's elder brother's wife. She is the Bahu of the house. When Mukesh's father enters, she gently brings the veil closer to her face, as it is the custom that daughters in law should cover their face before male elders. Dear students, that's all for today's lecture. With the remaining part of the text, we'll meet in the next video. Hope you all understand it properly. If you have any problem, do contact. Thank you.